Peace in Islam. Let's see if we can finish this one up today. Part 3. So we left off talking about Diego Prieto, Lincoln, promontory gifts. When they went to discover for the first time. Let's continue. Almotada disembarked, ready to regain the Algarve. Algarve is the Algarve. He was not affected by the defeat in Mequinesa, but by the uprising of Budapest in Morocco. Wanting to save the head of the kingdom, he left the province in the hand of Jacob, to whom the rebel asked for help, promising to give him the land of Saleh, separated from Morocco by the Narabe River. It had 3 days of walking. Jacob went in 1251. He recovered Saleh, which was in the hand of the Nazarenes, ending with Al-Mutarda. Look that up. So you got the Nazarenes in 1250s in America. They show you how we always in biblical times. So you got Al-Mutarda around 1255, proclaimed Budapest and mere Mamolin. He forgot his word, demanding restitution from the Algarve. So here on this side of the empire, there's battles between Moors right now, and he demanded restitution from this side, but there are uprisings. So he basically separating the sides. He changed his name to Aben Yusuf, returning to Morocco to conquer the throne. When we say Algarve, we talking about Morocco today. It's just an ambiguous term meaning land of God. We talked about that. And when we say Morocco, we talking about properly this area. The other side. At the end of the 16th century, the Mouli Shekwi and the Tsar received letters in Arabic from the kingdom of Poniente, Morocco, was head of the empire and the Barbary of Algarve. So both sides. Poniente means the west. The traditional cardinal point west. So they know about This term being used in historical texts to represent the West, just like Algarve also means the West, but they're talking about the West of Barbary, which would be North Africa today. And Portugal in the West. Two terms meaning the West, but we talk about the West, two different aspects. Poniente meaning the Western Hemisphere. Algarve meaning the West of Barbary. West of Barbary. And Algarve in Portugal meaning the west of the peninsula. So we know we're reading when we're reading. Mesa was close to Tegios, located in Cabo de Aguirre on the Amazon Delta. Documentation of the 17th century already reviewed allows us to locate Azamor and other place names. Cabo de Aguirre is where they split Cumana at in our Christian timeline. And that's the true spot of the Tordesillas line. And also where they put Capo de Arguim, which is going to be important. Ulloa saw fans in Cartagena woven from a certain kind of very fine and very thin palm. Savannas of this genre was cited in the Duke's inventory. And we know basket weaving, we got a culture of basket weaving using palm tree leaves. And we're showing you that it was already being done in Cartagena in the early days. Just to show you, talking about Africa, old Africa. Cartagena. And Senegal. Right there, Senegal. From Cumana to Senegal, we're talking about Cabo de Aguirre. In 1489, the Prince of the Jolifs, of Guinea, was in Lisbon. They baptized him the Bishop of Ceuta, and they gave him for arms a golden cross on a blue field. He was called Lord of all Guinea and a vassal of Juan II of Portugal. So you see what we were saying about the dealing with it under the Africa Rome jurisdiction. That's vassalage of a Christian. But you see they had him as Bishop of Ceuta. Bishop of Ceuta will give him jurisdiction over what we say Cumana and everything west of Cumana. So that's your king of Africa, quote unquote, in America. This 1489 Prince of the Jolifs. So we're talking about vassalage now. Vassalage is different from conquering. And it depends on your understanding of who you are. Forgetting who you are will make that vassalage perpetual. Knowing who you are, you can always get out of that vassalage. And that's the problem with Rome. Rome got you in a sort of vassalage capitulation. So you can always snap out of it. It don't got a legal form of perpetualness. Mentioned by the Catholic in 1475 as its own, It was the center of merchant stopover of the two Salés which flanked the river. The one was the bottom of the Gulf of Mesa. Talk about Tremison. In 1541, Aureliana wanted the natives to give vassalage to the emperor. Those of Santiago de las Montanas accepted to be vassals of Castile in 1616, and in 1716, various tribes of the Darien. So we know what a Darien ain't, right? You see, vassalage, not conquering. Once you give vassalage, they change your name, your history, and everything on this side of the books, within their books. You go to their schools, the Jesuit schools, where they reteach your children. And it's all dealing with Moors. This was history. This is Moorish history. The Hijra reed is Narthex reed. It was used to make rafts and as a staff. Also of staff, Father Sahilgan tells us about its importance in Aztec festivals and ceremonies. The feather caps, crowns, and plumes worn by warlords and consuls were also signs of distinction. And she basically saying all those are signs of Moorish customs, especially the plumes. That's why she put them in the quotes, because she found out that that means lordship in Morocco. No matter where Moors been out on the planet, the plume from Europe, Africa, Asia, America meant lordship in Morocco. Or successive lines of lords. In the Indies, wooden keys were made. In 1619, one of the three was made of wood, which closed the Alcazaba, or the castle of Saleh. So you got a key made in the Indies that been for a castle of Saleh. So we know we ain't talking about modern day Saleh, because you wouldn't be making a key in the Indies. Or even if they was making the key in the Indie, it still be evidence of connection between the two sides. Right? We talking about the Indies, the islands, the Caribbeans. Manuals do not deny our records. Do not deny the existence of the kingdom of Sus. Integrated into Morocco, they place it south of the Atlas, and they declared that it produced sugar cane, whose cultivation required a huge amount of water. Let's check that out. So we got the Sus. And then one river, a couple small streams. Okay. To justify it is said that the Sahara, at least on its western coast, was very fertile land in the 15th century, crossed by large rivers. Today, only very modest oases like this. But if we put the Sus back where the history book suggests, we got plush land, we got a lot of waters, a lot of rivers. Very good for sugar cane. Um, so much has changed that even the islands disappeared. And we're talking about islands because, again, you got so much small islands all over the place in this area that the history book reflect that, And that's how we know people playing games, mixing these stories up. Islands everywhere. Disappear on this side though. Cited at each step by sailors habitual of Island Mar, Poniente, Guinea, and Lamina, which is all terms used that in the history books for America, somewhere in America, long before Columbus was born. Specialists of prehistory archaeologists places the drying up of Sahara about 4,000 years ago, an opinion shared by geologists. Drying up of the Sahara about, perhaps because they do not know history. So archaeologists and geologists, they didn't get the memo to hide the old Morocco of the West. They didn't get that memo. So they placed the drying up of the Sahara 4,000 years ago, not in the 14th century. Um, so they blow their own cover out from Rome. Vulgar Tourist Guide presents the Saharan Mogador as a sugar cane on the 6th of the 16th century, informing tariffs of the 17th that the sugar of Barbary competed with that of Madeira, Brazil, and the Canary Islands. In 1637, Muli Muhammad El Sheikh was titled Emperor of Barbary, King of Fez, Sus, Dara, Tifilete, with the kingdoms of Guinea, and that's where you got your. I believe this became the West Indies, because you got all those terms that got Guyana in that area. See, even my um, map, I got them on this side over, and they still taking me back to America when I split this in Guyana, and that's what I believe he was talking about when he said all the kingdoms of Guyana, Guinea, Gago, and Timbuktu, and the provinces of Ha, Duquela, and Tamizna. So you're talking about both sides, practically all of Africa and all of America, because you see some of the titles of these emperors saying all the poles of the West, no, all the lands of the West from pole to pole. So you're talking about North and South Pole. The only continent that go pole for pole is the American continent. And they've been dealing with continents like that, so they have to express it in different ways, mostly by kingdoms like you see here in these titles. The islands of Cabo de Aguirre are densely populated and unstable. We place them comprising the provinces of Taylor and Guarda or Gadar, for some in Gran Canaria, and for those of Gran Canaria and Bavaria. So that's what it being called at that time. The port and province of Zebedique, with that of Tilit, 8 days from the port of Turucuco, with this land in the province of Benit Temer, whose port was 3 days of navigation from that of Galibarba, with the province of Kakima, calling the land by other names Kingdom of Mesa, and Azamor. Futara, with the city of Tagails, with the fortress of Agils and the house of Agadir, were the port of Nu, that of Euphini with its castle, Ufran, Tagamarte, Tiki Gunt, and Aula Damar, all in the Cape, and the island of Aguirre, such as the port of Gugarty and the province of Tufani, 8 days from the port of Artudale, province of Catalit, with the islands of Tenios and Cabo de Mogador in the Kingdom of Morocco, in addition to Talagit, Tiredi, and Tetanits. So we just put together a whole lot of ports and city states and kingdoms in America, Moorish America, that ain't nobody want to talk about because they give you too much power in America. If you if you believe you're a Moor, then that's your history, Moorish American. That reproduced on the edge of San Isidro del Campo, where the official castle and lines of the royal house were replaced by four felines pointing to Templar cross or cardinal points, framed by ostrich feathers, symbol of power in Morocco. You see the plume feathers is a symbol of power in Morocco. So when you see that in the West, they understand that. They're in the kingdom of Allah. They recall three plumes which were preserved by the third Duke. So even the third Duke, so you had three plumes on his, perhaps corresponding to the three successive lords of the Cape Aguirre Islands, which we just finished reading. Islands they covered the Aguirre and Morocco and America. Without weapons, the Fonseca remembered that really taking Alcuna and Solange reserved for the free woman because she is not married. Drawn dagger appears, adorned with pearls between two squads. And that's what calamari or Cameroon or Cameron come from. The symbolism. They evoke the old name Cartagena de Indias. And we just want to see that on the map. Cartagena de Indias. You know that terms like tobacco. We just finished reading terms like that. A lot of those terms we finished reading, some of those still exist. You can find it. You look, or it might be spelled slightly different, or it might be replaced by now, but you can find some of the terms to all those terms we read. So the Council of the Indies usually just use native lords and did business. You got with vassalage, you basically just allowing for a factory. And we can see, I think this the East Indies. We're showing you a picture of that. Yeah, Ceylon. But it's the same thing on both sides. Type of vassalage. And the debate of Volidord. Good thing to study. Because we're dealing with the truth of what happened. Not some generic story of some guy who discovered a place. We're dealing with actually what happened. The documents and everything that go with it. You know, you got the same thing. You got the debate of Volidord. Just the real pins of these. Had he been a governor over the so-called blacks in Volidord, and they used the understanding of that. They used that to determine what they did in the Indies. So that led me to believe that those people there were probably from the Indies already. And he been governing them in all Spain, Andalusia in the 1400s. And they were using that same tactic of vassalage. You see that red part? That's the Council of the Indies. The Portuguese did the same thing, but all this right here showing you native lords. The Council of the Indies been ran by native lords. The viceroy's been from here. It's important to know that because a lot of those been a lot of those viceroys and stuff been independent of Spain because they had understanding how to operate their kingdom. Under those terms like this, cacique, costumbres de los Araucanos, which is the Araucanos. And those red bands, red bandana we still wear today, right? Red and blue bandanas, those bandanas dealt with treaty. They already know he been a lord of the Moroccan Empire. Like a red flag letting you know what's up. That little ball game showing that he's a noble. People were recognized like IDs back then. They recognize people need status, so whatever status they're in. Better not step out of bounds. You gotta whoop. You had the law, you ain't even playing with people on this planet back then. Cacique, a king. Not even King White. You see Cacique. You see Shaka, another word to go along this story. Cacique, which is just like chic. You just in the West, so your words are a little different from the other side. Don't let them fool you. King or Prince, here or some. And these are the people who ran the kingdom of the Council of the Indies. So they've been going back and forth to Spain, dealing with the story. They've been running this shit. And they started going to war with these Caciques later in Spanish history. Like a Philip Camaro. Talk about him before. You know, if you know these stories, then you know what happened. Like Oraka. And Saturia of the Timuaca. It's a good story to look up. Another one they ain't put on here been Morocco. Cacique Morocco. He been in North America, like we see on that map. Morocco and Florida. Cacique. On the third voyage, he came upon more, speaking of Columbus, based on a letter dated August 4, 1495. On the third voyage, he came upon more evidence of the contact between Guinea and the New World. You see, you got the modern digging here, right? So even Rome always affecting us on where we think and see things, and we follow along. From a settlement along the South America coast, of which his men landed on Tuesday, August 7th, the natives brought handkerchiefs of cotton very symmetrically woven and worked in colors, like those brought from Guinea. From the rivers of Sierra Leone, another flag of a place called Sierra Leone that most likely is not the Sierra Leone that we see today that connect to that flag. And of no differences, not only were they alike in style and color, but also in function. They These handkerchiefs, he said, resemble almizars, a Ghanaian headdress. So that part is true. The other side, where we got Ghanaian at the date, that also is also a part of this empire. So they will have some of the same products and stuff from that we got on this side and in Andalusia. But we're gonna show you how they confusing themselves and they ain't gonna have no choice but to get on these videos to get that truth. Make sense of this shit. Cause we see right here, and all four of his voyages, according to this person, he never went to that Guinea. As far as he went has been Cape Verde. If they want to say that's Guinea, let's see how close that is. Gambia, the Guinea best, so they can, so that's close. But he went Cape Verde according to that. And all this right here is a lot of this ain't really happened. They talking about places in America with these names, just like Guinea and Sierra Leone, all that on this coast. Let's see how they got him skipping everything on Portuguese side, stopping at Cumana where 50 years before him, 1430, 50 years before his event, they split the continent in half between Portugal and Spain at Cumana. So you see how he already know all that, and he been ordered to not touch Guinea or Africa or Portuguese Indies, which is everything outside to the right of Cumana. So they know he ain't going, but he ain't listening to that because he going to Guinea and Sierra Leone, which is on this side. The history books didn't reflect that because he ain't supposed to. Let me show you Madeira. There's parts that they ain't got him registered going to, but the Madeira River is right there. But since he show up in record books, they're gonna put him with modern day Canary and Madeira at, and Cape Verde, which is all over here. None of those been discoveries. Every time they put him on these islands, you see how they got the Azores. They try to say he used to know as stopovers, but he ain't a need to. No navigator that need to. These just show up in his stories, so they slide the line over there. Right? They using these lines are drawn based off how they perceive the story. Let me see, Sanlúcar, Palos, Cadiz, Lisbon, all that. You gotta put all that in the story now. And when you do, you're dealing with Moorish history, nothing more, nothing less. So you don't see no stopover at Sierra Leone or Guinea. So what they talking about? The story they got is true, but not the understanding. Now watch this. Columbus before coming to America. That's how retarded they is. Iceland and Ireland. So that's Iceland, that's America. Guinea and the Gold Coast of West Africa. So again, they talk about America because he already been here. He just get the idea to register it for Isabel. So he already know what he been registering. He's come to register it. Like this, we can show you how place names work. You see at the top, we see Italy. I'm gonna show you in America, Italia. Right? They show you how vowels, small changes, by phonetically, we're dealing with some of the same shit. Let me see. Italia. Italy is the English. Italia is the Latin. So Western Moorish Latin is Italia. Same phonetics, different spellings. And usually a vowel difference most of the time. And that I and that Y um, is very interchangeable. I and Y. So we got Italia. We come down. We we hit Cartago or Cartagena. Then we come down. We hit Saragossa, Goria, and Leon. Segovia and Leon. Then you got Portugal, San Miguel, right under that, which is Portugal, and San Miguel. You're going across the strait, you're going across the Darien, or the Panama Canal, the Panama area, into Morocco, the mountains of Morocco, like on this side of the world. Let's just the map turn slightly to the 45 degrees to the left. Basically, all they did been take what already been set up. Okay, let's see if we can turn our map around like that. And you see how you coming into the mountains of Morocco on that side. And on this side, you coming into the mountains. And you come from Spain, France, Italy. On the side, the same thing. Italia up there with Yucatan coming down to Spain, and Portugal going into Morocco. Ancient Carthaginians leading up to the Moorish Empire. And even at the time of Carthage, we had to deal with Rome. At the time of Morocco or the Moorish Empire, we had to deal with Romans. Those the European nations of the world, Christian nations. And now, still dealing with those same characters. They just try to act like you don't exist no more. As the tale goes, an Englishman was making his first visit to the Gulf states in the South. He was much more interested in the habits of what he called the blackamoors. So an Englishman making his first visit, meaning by that the members of the colored population. So again, evidence out there to show you this term we're dealing with these stories. Moors, don't let them try to tell you that's somebody else. When you get to the truth, because now they're trying to steal somebody else's history. That's why we don't care what other history they talk about. Black history, African American history. If you don't use the term more, then you ain't talking about us. A wagon white man chanced to fall into convention with him on board a train when passing through the delta of Mississippi. The Englishman said that the Negroes, you see, again, blacks, spoke with an accent, which made it difficult for him to fathom their meaning. And that's I guess, a comedic uh, comic, but we're still gonna look into the mind of the people of that time. You should hear them talking Indian. So that's again a term that means indigenous, said the southerner. It is possible that these people understand the aboriginal tongues. Oh, yes, just listen, I'll give you a demonstration. The train has halted at a small station. The natives lean forward the car windows and addressing an aged darky, another Muslim, on the platform called out, Warhi. Instead, instantly the reply came, Warhu? so that mu- so basically, I guess that's the joke because they were speaking English, they understand English like Wahoo, making a joke, playing with them. So you got the Florida pirate. See how you look. You can see Manuel El Pirate, Pirate, the pirate. Manuel. So you already know he's ancient Canaanite type, etc. Origin of the name of the city Nazca, near the Nazca lines, and that's in South America. Allen notes that Al Firuzbadi's Al Nusuk may be equivalent to the Nasak or the Nazca. You see, a line or row applied to a belt of stars of Orion, but they're signifying a string of pearls. And a similarity that Nasak al Yameni with the southern borderline of the heavenly pastures. You see, Yemen, al Yemeni, Reda Opiokus with Nasak al Shamiya. You see, the Arabic and the old American language is pretty much the same. We even still spell our names like that with that Y, with that usage of the Y in our Ya instead of I. Hence, Nasak clearly indicates boundary line, so that Nazca is a reference to measure. So just the fact that they use the term Nazca in America, they say, wait a minute, this is Arabic, Al Nusuk. How do they know? That's how they know what to hide from you. When they start realizing that, oh shit, this is the Moorish Empire. No. Marginalize that shit in one territory that we see today called Morocco. And they use even Moorish Americans to foster that marginalization. If you ask me where's Morocco, I can say the planet. What you talking about? Because I can prove that. Anybody else, good luck. Try to prove that with any other term. Egypt probably the other term you probably got to use. Or Africa. The Shanto Tamare or Putan Mayan Punt, the laws of ancient Punt, were never mentioned to me by Dr. Roman Pinachan. No one told me that they were the direct descendants of the Olmec civilization or that they were the master mariners of the Mesoamerica world. The Tamare people originated in the island of the islands in the tidal marshes near Villahermosa. Villahermosa. That's the village of man. And seem to have called themselves the Tamate or the Tamale. They will give you all those instead of just Mare, like it most likely been Tamare. Since those words pop up as a place name and indigenous word in the southeastern United States, Tamaulipas, in Mexican state means trade people. I visited some of these islands where the Chantal Mayas once lived for a day because I was curious as to why they look so much like the region of the coast of Georgia and southern South Carolina. And I think the rest speaks for itself. They remind us of some shell mittens, Kandake, or Kentucky, like the state, Kentucky, which means great woman, were used as a royal title or dynastic name for the Queen of Meroe or Morocco, the capital of Kush, which is another word we use for God. Some Kandakes ruled in their own right. Others ruled with their husbands and seem to have had equal power with the king. At least one Kandake was the ruler while her husband was her consort. Furthermore, some of these Kendakes were warrior queens who led their armies into battle. Don't let them marginalize the ancient empire of Egypt, like chapter 47 say. Be faithful to our holy text, so we know this empire been in America. We also can see that the term Kendake means Candace, also spelled like Candace. And we got the multitude of women in America with this name more than any other place, even in what we assume to be the ancient Meru. So make it make sense. I thought they would give me a definition. More place names. Alright, that's what I'm looking for. Ancient Nubia. Alright, still under the ancient empire of Egypt. Um, right there you see Latinized as Candace. And Amer Akush, which Marrakesh means the land or the sons and daughters of Cush. So saying things like Candace owns is just like saying Queen owns in your original tongue. That's why it's important to know these things. Robert D. Bay, 42, of Newark, New Jersey, last week won a segregation test in city court here. So that's why you don't really see me talking to Romans, black or white Romans, U.S. citizen, 14th Amendment, reconstructed persons about law because our customs and our understanding different than these people, even if they call themselves judge, because we're dealing with right law. That transcend their beliefs, but they always try to put their beliefs in the mix. But watch this. Babe, who who has dark skin but describe himself as a Moorish American. You see, the article writer even disrespectful and ignorant of the law of himself and all things. Said had been arrested earlier in the week for using the waiting room designated for whites, quote unquote, at the Union bus station. Arrested by local policemen after station employees had been unable to make him move into the colored waiting room. Bay went to the police station willingly, where he told an officer, I am not colored. I am a Moorish American and I am a human being. So that's way before you see all the propaganda today about what Moors is and what we talking about from Rome, try to tell us what we is and other people, black and white Romans, right? You got this going on in America. This probably in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. No, not 80s. Ain't no segregation. So 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, right? Segregation laws. So must us with that. Moors don't follow law, government, all this, because we about to teach the whole world right now what time it is, right? So after he said that, no misdemeanor. Judge Albert Du ruled that if a traveler fails to use the waiting room set up for a particular race, this practice doesn't constitute a misdemeanor. So that was the judge ruled at that time. So the way he ruled that is deceptive because segregation continue on in that same county, in that same town. Charges still being brought up on these people and ain't changed nothing. He could have given a better explanation and change it and make sure we know this unconstitutional segregation, right? Unconstitutional. That's what they find out now. That right now is this absurd having a colored and a white bathroom, right? Waiting room, right? That's absurd to us now. So back then, you probably had ignorant black and white Romans telling him that he is a sovereign citizen. He don't want to follow the law, quote unquote, because he did this. But now, this is basically he right to everybody now. To even the Romans, he right what he did back then. So now it things now that they seeing that we saying and doing, they ain't us or they ain't around us, so they don't know exactly what that is, but they propagandized. They gonna he's sovereign citizens. He don't want to just follow the law. So 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, when it becomes illegal or whatever now how you look? Ignorant. So we don't deal with y'all. We don't play with y'all. They take that shit to the judge and let him know if he don't know, we're gonna teach his ass what the law is. Just like this man. Back then he been telling them, boy, that unconstitutional as hell. I'm a Moorish American. So the police, the judge, and the people who've been trying to get him to go into the other room, all of them ignorant. Because they didn't even know who they is and worrying about this man. So he teach them. He dropped the charges against Pitt without hearing any testimony. Because he already know he unconstitutionally ready to rake in commercial pirating. That's all they doing. And they still doing them. He just more codified than he been back then. They are smarter on how to codify this shit. Unconstitutional. A lot of this shit unconstitutional. But if you let them get to that point and not call that shit out like my man right here, then war on to you and your children. They get to a point where you're gonna look selfish when they get to something that you feel you violated on before you step up and say something. You not let all the other violations happen to your own people. Then when they get to something like they tell you you gotta pay to breathe, now you wanna talk constitution. You're gonna look like a hypocrite. It's not gonna work for you. And metaphysically, you ain't gonna get that blessing from what you did. So again, ask yourself of your brother or sister who been arrested. Find out yourself what happened as much as you could of information you could. Ask your own heart if that person belong in a cage or not. Don't rely on what no technical ass shit that you seen. You would be just like these people back then. That been the law at the time, right? They just the law. We can't change nothing. It's just the law. No, if you right or wrong, that's the law. If you right or wrong, that's the law, not the technical shit that they saying. Ask yourself if you right or wrong. If you don't know right or wrong, then you have been raised right in your household. That's it. Queens, Negro pastor, black pastor, in a turban gets white service in the deep south. So I already gotta read this, but this is even how she been carrying herself, and they've been they've been shocked, but they still respect her because of her ways and how she been treating herself and play with them people. See, only in their mind where they think certain things about you, but they can't know about you. What somebody else think in their mind about you don't make you. You make you, but your words and your deeds. In Carolina, we found evidence of numerous Indian settlements repurposed into plantations. The name of one was Saracens. You see now, repurposing settlements into plantations, showing you that they didn't have to bring you from Africa. They already had people they could have used to work the plantation, sharecrop, vassalage, setting up um, factories. The name of one was Saracens, or Saracens. The aboriginal name of the Indian settlement was Saracen at the point of the contact with the law proprietors. Even if the place was named by whites as claimed by Euro history, it is still in either case that the so-called black Indian inhabitants prior to the colonial settlements were decreed Saracens. Saracen is another term for Moors, used by Romans. They used that in the Treaty of Tordesillas. They used that term Saracens. So we deal with South Carolina, and he said black Indian inhabitants, which he could have just said the Moorish. He could have said Indian, indigenous Moorish Americans, but it make perfect sense since he now know that the ship are called Saracens. Ethnologists refer to the Aborigines as Ishmaelites. We see in the artifacts are what we call legal titles. These could be used in your documents most, in your affidavits, in your documents, your family history. The artifacts are any mound around you could be used. Any old sites like the Saracens, plantations. All this is evidence for your trust. Say the artifacts are illuminated by Libyan Arabic texts. Let's see. This is the Connecticut's 5th century church, the oldest church on the continent, and it was Moroccan. Say a voyage of Christian Byzantine monks who fled from North Africa during the 1st century in the wake of the Vandal invasions. That's where they believe this bimbo. But we can see they were sailing towards the setting sun to Ask Shamal. That's another name we can use for North America. The northern land suggested of North America. Ask. That's like Alaska. Ask Shamal. Um, who studied the Fuiguig inscriptions during the 1960s, placed the monks' arrival in North America around 480 AD. So you got documents, you got evidence of your presence by the ton here. And what are we doing talking about port cities? Because a lot of these been boundary stones. And we see even the purple, here's the red, and we see the all white. Oh, we talking about all this. I ain't talking about the purple yet. Born in the purple. That's a concept in history that we talk about in these videos. We born in the purple, we just gotta maintain that nobility. And again, Byzantine. And Moors. You see they in their higher self with that halo. And those palm trees, very interesting that back. See acts of legislation. All slaves may be sold and money appropriated. Says that all free Negroes and persons of color and all other persons shall be exempted from the operation of this act, where such free Negroes or persons of color and slaves has arrived within the limit of the states by shipping, stress of weather, or other unavoidable accident scenario. They show you that Moors been all stole all around these areas in America, all over these riverways and shit. Even in North America, we have the same thing. Small islands, rivers, canals, everywhere. Even in the middle of the country, you can find it everywhere. Just rivers, canals, connections. Basically a bunch of islands. That's why you have to make treaties and stuff, because that's been a reality those days. It's a great war. And look what they say, nor shall this act extend to free American Indians. We always say this too. You probably see some Moors who will say this, at least say it exactly like this. If you want to use this term Indian, black Indian, don't use that. Use them exactly as this term. We're trying to teach you law, because this term exists in this document. It can be a party perpetually. So this act don't extend to free American Indians, because they know and we know the term American is Al-Moroccan, indigenous Al-Moroccans. Free Moors, which is Moors that got treaty with United States at this time, or Laysars. Laysars, let me show you what that is. They had jurisdiction, they had rights because of the oil dealings with them Moors in Rome. You see the other side of the empire. Because they talking about the whole Moorish Empire, they can't really, you can't go against these agreements that already been made in the world. I mean, you just born in this time period right here. You can't change that. You just gotta what they're doing is they codifying what they can do, and the people who don't understand it, they fall under the jurisdiction. Master of vessels. We'll get into that in a little while. You see the four Indian kings. They already noticed they were broken down really into not just the Emperor of Morocco, but like four emperors that handle the whole continent, deal with the whole continent. But they are the Moorish kings. You had the Peruvian kingdom living on the other side. You had the Mexico kingdom, half the country. And you most likely had some North American that they definitely ain't want to talk about. That motherfucker. Northeastern parts. 13 colony. So again, you see these Vasqueros Apache Vasqueros, the Pasha cowboys, who they've been the original law enforcers. They truly enforce what the law is. And you see again the bandana around the neck to let them know the jurisdiction, like constitutional, my flag, my bandera, or bandana. Some boy got on Cordoba. So you know, violate the constitution around him, he ain't kid, he's shooting you. That's why they don't want Moors to deal with that, because that's how they used to be. You know, women. They would call her a blackamoor woman, the Europeans. And Alessandro De Michi. Let's see how. Let me show you how he understood it. He know he's a lord, but he know he Moorish, so I spell Italian. So you see, the Moor, Alessandro De Michi El Moro, and Italian Il Moro. That's like a Christian who understands who he is and understand his real true self. He would have put. That's why I know what y'all say the Christian straight on us, because the sign stole out, but it enslaved the people were the misunderstanding of what that is, because he would have been El Christos, which would mean the Lord also. El Moro, the same way, but more anciently, because you're going all the way back to the ancient empires of Egypt. You see, you always got to add that story in there with anytime you deal with the term Mo. Like I must hate you. Gotta connect it to a slave. They will even do this to the term Arab or Muslim. For the term Mo, oh yeah, they really getting it beside themselves, start going crazy. So again, I still, even to this day, get these questions from these black and white Romans about how we Moors. So this was a quick Rundowns when you search on Google for the term portrait of Moors. Suppose that just like we can do portrait of blacks, portrait of this and that, portrait of Moors. And I'm gonna show you what pop up. A lot of these paintings by the artist is titled Moors. I know my Google different from everybody else one, but that's why I get when I search for Moors. Even the ones who we perceive to be Christian, we still going by our woman who understand what that is. Just like they teach us what Muslim is and everything else. And W like Tupac, right? Biggie. East side and west side. We don't know what she know. We gotta have our own investigation into these stuff before we plan to know. What I'm using these things for right now is historically these people who is being called Moors who run everything. He look like this. And a pearl earring sign of Moors. Yeah, I like that. Definitely the turban with the feather. Definitely a sign. And we know that's a Western Moorish thing. Turban, feather, pearls, and these are what we consider these robes type uh, clothing. Most like we making ourselves from the fabric to the clothes, and the turbans and the jewelry. Which ain't nothing for us to learn how to do again, too. Because the fabric and stuff come from the earth. And we just gotta get the skill on how to make our clothes again. How much of these people look like this in America? That's one equation that we can easily solve. Are we Moors? Well, how Moors look like this. We got enough evidence to show that this is America. Unless they were dressing the same way somewhere else. Okay, Umar Johnson, when you worrying about why Caribbeans darker than me, but they keep saying they not black. Yeah, because they don't got that same Roman understanding of who they is like you got. They ain't been to the same Jesuit schools. They might have been to a Jesuit school, but not the same one as you. These is easily found in the motor section. No, it's definitely America. Morocco, the head of the empire. The west, Poniente, Alamar, look at that captives. That's me and you governing, period. If you catch criminals, it ain't matter how they look. Types of Morisques. She look like my aunt. Young Moore. You probably already know algebra at this age. High level algebra. Because that's what Moors do. Word stigmas usually stick to people based off their ways. And then a lot of shit that we say, that's white people shit, or that's that black people shit, or that black shit, that hood shit. There's the moral shit and that science and math and knowledge and shit that you should want for your job. Military tactics to war, which they always going to blow out of proportion in your aspect when you won't bring that out because they want to act like, okay, now you the ones who've been doing this and that, enslaving people and all this. So they only gonna take one aspect of you, your military might and intelligence, but they ain't care about the rest. But quote unquote black shit, oh yeah, they'll pay me to talk about that. But I got a boring series to the people in that mind state because I should be teaching basic algebra, common for children, algebra for Moorish children. Written by Moors in English. He said that tassel has always mean knowledge, seeker of knowledge. The elders that the governors and the mayors, judges, lawyers would always get their teachings from. These old Moors, they'd have been teaching the younger ones who were in government. The crystals, all this from the land. And we see the Olmec, we see the wrap around like the turban. And we see also the tassel to show how far back this ancient understanding been. Most likely a red fez. Again, like Nova Charlie, the same thing. Plume feathers, like we talked about earlier. The emperor, a emperor. So like they say, they just want to show you one king. And just like we showed you earlier, he controlled the Americas and Africa. See, he even got the pearl, even got the turban, he got the what we call the Turkish crown, what the English call Turkish crown, and it look like a tassel on that. You see the same type of clothing that we saw earlier with the robe wrapping around. See the illustrious, magnificent Sharif Muli, and that again Sharif and Shekwe, stuff like that. Muli Araksid Al Rashid. King after Philite Fez Morocco. Tarudit. Can't really make out the rest. But yeah, King of the Moors. It look like your uncle them. And these guys. In this portrait. Emperor. Same thing as this Turkish like we were saying earlier. Same crown that the emperor got on. The top one was turban. Here's another king, King Philip, and the man of England. But you see, he still got his red cape. And this right here, this little star-looking thing. We have to do a whole video on what that is. Then we see him with his long musket. Stop letting them tell you about some right to bear arms. Almost, you can never tell a more we could bear arms and not, especially a Christian, unless you're looking for a war, chopping your head with a tomahawk. But I let them get away with that so long that they beside themselves. And you don't know. Since you don't know, you don't even know how to express that to them. Show them how they wrong. And see all of them with the same thing. These Jews, these certain Jews, you can find the meaning of these things. So this one right here, that's very West African, quote unquote. They call it the Agra beads, and that's how they connect West Africa with the Phoenicians. But this one thing right here, Agra bead, I think we call. Or maybe wrong. We talk about that all the time. Pair of kings, we just want to see him. And it's showing these because, again, when I visually say we just got to see one king, and then he starts talking about the king of Angola and Ghana and everything. He's showing you over here. Because he does lead us wrong, say that's the problem. That can we identify what king that far away? And now I ain't got the excuse. Got the king right here. Right, this way they only mean the 4 Indian kings. Then he must in the northeast parts of America. 13 colonies. He must have had whoever that been playing games. Because Montezuma been in Mexico and most of the west coast, east west of the Mississippi. But knowing the Englishmen, they probably got that under lock and key, the 4th one, because the United States of America, 13 colonies story connected to that one. So I wouldn't put it past the United States to ask. That's in Area 51, nigga. King, queen, we saw earlier, this means king or prince. Definitely a king. I believe he wanted him. He got the same crown as Atabra. Got the same crown. Or he might be the 4th one, who knows. But you see, he got the same gear. But as you can see, his complexion, his features, don't let them play with your children. And he got the staff just like the Emperor of Morocco had the same staff type thing. So you know what he dealing with. He could be a Sharif that we reading about in these stories. Let's deal with some more. It's a Mexico African. Or you could just say Moorish American. King Yakshun Balam. King Bonaparte Fishfin. You see? That means he understand the seas. He been a seafarer when he deal with the fish and stuff like that. And you see they be having the R on their name too. So they stole Phoenicians, Canaanites. Mo Nabe. Yanab Bakal. So you already know about the Orishas. Those are metaphysical, spiritual, and physical. Um, Understand this. So the monarchs of the time used those evocations as divine right of rule. Obatala means most likely the original God or Father God, using Allah, Abat, to Allah. Showing Sir Francis Drake what a crown mean. So California, they definitely can't act like they don't know about Moors. We see they still ritualize it. You see the Egyptian crown, ancient Carthaginian crown back there. They still ritualize it in Brazil. And it would make more sense that they would because that's been the head of the empire at that time. So most of our evidence and our customs will be there. And got the East Indies, same thing, same Moors. Look at P and F History Channel. You get more information on the East Indies, quote unquote, the ancient Madara Empire. And you got videos like this: African discovered America century before Columbus. Got videos like this, but they're still inaccurate because these brothers with the robe on, they ain't have to come from nowhere to meet brothers with the feathers. They're the same people. These people been on the side. They got the evidence to show that they're ancient Moroccans, Moabites, and all these customs. You see how they lighting up them boys' skin and everything. All that's a mental Roman BS. Cause they can't show me. They can't make 100 videos showing me no real documents and records of any kingdoms, but we can. So even though they think they're rebutting us or rebutting something and try to give you your history, they still giving you to in a fake ass way. And boy, they come see no damn yellow men. It's the Moorish Empire of the West, anciently and modernly. You see the crescent. See this all, you see the rosary, all the same signs. Khmer, Khmer, Cambodia. So we should be done in a second. Same signs. You see the tiger, the lion, Buddha, Ayura. And again, you get videos like this that'll try to make sense of these things, but not like us. So these some of the stuff you gotta look into. This is what is important for us as a nation. If we thinking like that, if we think of ourselves as self, then a lot of this ain't gonna be important to you. Are we thinking for the whole? Then you gotta understand what these words and stuff is. We're gonna finish. We had that, but never been finished. Just but got to be a part 4. Peace the next time.